Welcome to the Pigskins and Politics Podcast, the only podcast that combines two topics that go together like Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions. Welcome to the PPP. My name is Brian McFadden. The Super Bowl is set, and we have a fantastic show for you lined up here today. In case you couldn't notice, you are listening to the NFL episode. Make sure to stick around for the politics chat, which will drop in a couple days. Let's go ahead and bring in our multiple guests for the week. But first, we got to bring in the Robin to my Batman, the Saban to my Belichick.
No.
Mr. Will Southard, how you doing after the conference weekend?
If anything, you are the Rogers to my Brady, sir. I just want you to know that.
Oh, God. It starts. It really starts. We're like barely a minute into this
Listen. I mean, hey, one of us is going on Reddit roast me, and it's not me.
I forgot
That's all
about
I got to say.
that.
Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers have the same number of NFC championships, and that's a thing. That's a stat, by the way. I'm doing fantastic.
I'm sure you are.
I do. That last game yesterday, I'm like, whatever. I'm good.
Yeah, you didn't care who the opponent was at that point. You've got Brady in Tampa.
I did care.
Because it would have been easier to face, Josh Allen. No offense to one of our guests that we're going to choose in a second. Than to face Patrick Mahomes, who is a reigning Super Bowl champion and former MVP. Is that the thinking?
Yep. You
want the easy path?
Listen, I'm gonna. We got to introduce our guest, but I'll just go on a limb and I'll say I can admit that I don't think anybody has any misconceptions that the Kansas City Chiefs are the best team in football. Like, we can just agree on that, like, right now. Like, they may not win the Super Bowl, but they're the better team. I mean, like, they're the best team in football. So I'll admit that. Just depends on if they show up or not.
Any given Sunday.
And they probably will.
I've been saying this since the beginning of the year. We will get into more of that later, but let's go ahead and bring on the other two people who are joining us on the episode today. First, our producer, Anthony Wehner, will be joining us for the entire episode because, as I mentioned in the intro, and you can see because of his garb, and for any of us who follow us on social media, you might have noticed his rant on Twitter. So he has some news regarding and some personal feelings regarding the Matthew Stafford situation. Anthony, how are you feeling tonight other than the obvious with Stafford?
I have never been so depressed in my life.
Okay. Tell us how you really feel.
I feel like I've been married for a decade and I just got cheated on. My wife and twin left me right now.
Just didn't even see it coming.
Yeah, didn't even see it coming, and now she's gonna go.
Is that how long Stafford's been in the league? 10 years?
Yeah.
Jeez.
11 now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's only been with Detroit his whole career.
Well, we're gonna do our best to console you. I don't know if we'll do a great job of it. And we'll definitely get into depth about that Stafford Lions situation. But let's bring in our final guest, Mr. Roger Walsh, who is the host of the Rogcast Sports Podcast and a diehard Bills Mafia member and Buffalo Bills fan. Roger, welcome to the PPP. How you doing, man?
Good. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's licking the wounds day, that's for sure. 12 degrees this morning out where I live, it's south of Buffalo, and it felt as cold on the field, that's for sure. Too conservative. From the top down, they got out-coached, they got outplayed, they got beat by a better team.
Let's not forget outscored.
More points.
Yes, exactly. Scoreboard, yes, says that as well. Exactly. But that really is. We get into the
and we're going to break that
of it.
down.
But that really is where it starts, and we're really where it ends. Sean McDermott, as great as he has been here in Buffalo, to resetting this franchise was a mess when he took it over. I mean, Rex Ryan was out the door. Okay, bad hire, great, but it goes back almost 15 years with Dick Geron and then Chan Gailey as a head coach. The horrible drafting and the overpaying of players. That is something that they corrected, and Brandon Beane has done almost a masterful job as GM. Now, yes, he let Wyatt Teller get away.
I'm going to stop you real quick. I can tell you're in the feels. and you got the emotions, and I want to hear all about that. We're going to have a section for you to break down the Bills. You're like, I get it, dude. You're like ready to get off your chest. I feel for you, man. We got Will over here who's like riding on cloud 9 because his beloved Brady is in the Super Bowl. We've got Anthony, our producer, with the deep wound from the Stafford news. We've got Roger, our guest, after just having seen his beloved. But man, this is going to be an interesting roller coaster emotionally episode of the PPP NFL version. So let's go ahead and jump into some NFL news. We do have a couple small coaching things to announce, and then we will dive into the Stafford news specifically. So a couple of the head coaching updates, or at least the coaching updates. We don't have any new official hires, although Dan Campbell was made official shortly after but we kind of knew that was coming. The Eagles did hire Nick Sirianni, who was the offensive coordinator in Indianapolis. So the thinking there is that he's been around Frank Reich, and the Eagles kind of wanted another kind of Frank Reich Jr. to come in, but they couldn't get Reich himself. We had talked about at the end of last podcast, Will had mentioned that Josh McDaniels was a front runner. That obviously didn't happen. He's going back to New England. But Will, we'll start with you there. Any thoughts on the Eagles hiring Sirianni here?
I mean, anybody that can breathe life into the corpse of Phillip Rivers for a few months probably deserves a shot, right? I mean, there's that. But yeah, I mean, I don't have strong feelings about it. I mean, the Colts offense was okay. I mean, I think the Colts offense was more a factor of Rivers' late life constraints than it was like calling.
Well, one thing to note too is Sirianni did not call the plays. Reich actually was the offensive play caller, so Sirianni might have had the title of
even scheming.
Right,
even scheming. I mean, Hilton pretty much disappeared except for 2 games. Eugene Hilton, by the way.
Is that his real first name?
Eugene? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I have a whole list of people's names that you would never think, bro. Like in the NFL.
I thought it was T.Y.
Apparently, I
guess
guess
it's
that's what he
Eugene
goes by?
Hilton.
And, hey, Will,
Eugene.
if your name was
Yeah.
Eugene, wouldn't you go by, something different? T.Y.
Listen.
T.Y.? Yeah, absolutely.
My dad's
it
name
was.
is Eugene. Hopefully,
And
he's not listening to this episode. Sorry, Dad.
Yeah. So who knows, man? I mean, they had a good staff there in Indianapolis. I mean, we got a lot of coaching hires this year, I think, that are kind of like wait and see, hires. The big whatchamacallit, what's the thing that the big elephant in the room is Eric Bieniemy still being unemployed as a head coach.
He's still in the mix for the
needs to just
Texans.
make
I mean,
that
the
hire.
Texans are the only team left.
It's got to be. It's if they want to salvage the thing with Deshaun Watson, it absolutely has to
won't.
be Bieniemy. I don't think they will.
He's saying if.
But if they want to, and that's a thing. I don't think we're going to talk about that, but that's a thing that I'm curious about. Is it emerged that the Jets are Deshaun's number 1 pick. Why? They have nothing, bro. You're better off just staying in Houston. At least you got
His taxes would go up.
Cooks and
Roger
Fuller.
lives in New York.
Yeah,
He gets it.
exactly. And it's cold as balls. Why would you want to live in New York?
I lived
Oh
in
my
New York
God.
City for 13
Anyway,
years. I get it. I think Saleh is the draw there specifically. I don't want to get down this rabbit. We've talked about the Watson thing the last few weeks, and we will certainly be talking about it again through the course of the offseason. But
we'll
I think
see.
Saleh specifically is the draw there. He heard from Richard Sherman that said, oh, yeah, Saleh's a great guy to play for. So I think that's the reason the Jets are the option. Plus, they have the capital to trade for him. Right. Roger, let me get any thoughts specifically on the Eagles head coaching hire of Nick Sirianni?
Well, I mean, look, there was obviously a power struggle there in Philadelphia, and Peterson didn't win. The whole Jalen Hurts thing and putting in what's his name,
Sudfeld. Yeah, Nate Sudfeld in Week 17. We talked about that on this podcast.
That's right. To get a look at him in the fourth quarter of a game.
Get a look at a guy who's been on the roster for
opposition.
3 years. He's not new. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Look, let's just take a look and see what he can do here in the biggest game of the season. It is tough. If Doug Peterson, who won the Eagles the Super Bowl. And I'll coach Belichick, and I'm sorry, we might get to it later about how conservative Sean McDermott was last night. That he stepped on the gas and went for it. How that doesn't get him free drinks for 5 years. Obviously, something is going on underneath the scenes that we don't know. I imagine benching Jalen Hurts did not impress
or the players.
The ownership of the Eagles. Or the players. Oh, they're pissed, and I don't blame them. I guess we'll see. You know, every time you hire a coordinator, you never know how they're going to manage themselves into really running the organization. And it starts from the top down. We're going to see. I mean, look, he's a good coach. Maybe he lost the locker room. That's fine. It's not fine, really, if you're an Eagle fan. But I don't know. Maybe you look in another direction. You talk about Bieniemy. I mean, his coaching acumen was on display last night. I mean, he absolutely.
You're just dying to talk about this game,
Frazier.
and
No.
No, like I said, you're still like Anthony
he's
mentioned the whole breakup thing. It's like you just got broken up, but you got broken up with yesterday, so it still hurts. You still got those feels. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
listen. To be fair, you basically just played the Super Bowl.
For the
You know
Bills,
what I mean?
that was
Like,
kind of their Super Bowl. Yeah.
I don't mean it like that. I just mean like you got beat by the eventual Super Bowl champion. It's not like, it's not like the Browns put you out in the wild card round. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah, and there's no shame in
Whatever.
that. There's no shame in that. They left so many plays on the field. But, yeah, exactly. But in the Eagles situation in particular is the fact that they hire Sirianni, okay, and there's two guys left for the Texans job, which is Frazier and Bieniemy. You wonder if they would have taken a longer look at this. Now, I don't know Eric Bieniemy. I don't know what his coaching philosophy is. But if you look at the net result, and he falls under that Andy Reid tree as, well, Andy Reid's there. So he's a safety net. You don't know until you talk to him.
Well,
I don't know what Philly's thinking.
The reports, reports out there was that Philadelphia
the
ownership and GM Howie Roseman wanted a coach to come in who was going to keep and work with Wentz. I think that was the big sticking point. A lot of these coaches, they saw what Jalen Hurts did and how bad Wentz looked, and they probably would come in and say, I'd like to see what I can do with Hurts, maybe draft a quarterback. Eagles brass was like, no. Whatever coach comes in has to – they basically told him, Wentz is your guy. So you had to get a guy like Sirianni who's unproven, who's still doesn't have much of a track record, simply because he said, I'll take on Wentz. So I think that's what it comes down to. Let's get to a couple other quick announcements.
Well, you never know. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs, they could just be going by like, keep your frenemies close, but your enemies closer.
That was a fail.
Can I just say this about? Can I just say this about that philosophy?
It's a good one.
Is every coach that comes in to an organization where a player is underperformed says this: I can fix him. I'm the man to do it. I'm the one that can turn his game around. And if they are, great. If not, you set your organization back 3 to 4 years. And maybe that's what the Eagles are looking at. We'll see.
A couple others, coordinator announcements. So Anthony Lynn was the former head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, was hired as the offensive coordinator in Detroit. And Aaron Glenn, hired as the defensive coordinator, he was the secondary coach for the Saints. So we're going to use that to transition right into the news of the day, because we don't need to break down those two hires. I think on paper those are good hires.
It's good news for DeAndre Swift.
A very strong staff.
That's right, Anthony.
It's good news for DeAndre Swift.
Very good, Anthony Lynn, former running back.
Yes, Anthony Lynn, head coach for one game.
That's right. He was an interim head coach. Yeah.
One game.
And he likes to run the ball. So
interim.
yes, agreed. DeAndre Swift, good. I love Dan Campbell, Anthony Lynn, Aaron Glenn,
He's
all
a
those
talented
hires.
player, yeah.
All those hires are good, but that's not what we're talking about right now. The reason we have our producer in front of the camera today instead of behind is that obviously, as we know, he's a diehard Lions fan, and Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions mutually agreed to part ways. So Stafford has officially requested a trade. There's been speculation for a few years. Well, is Stafford going to go? And it never happened. They bring in a new regime. Dan Campbell, he's a player's coach. I honestly didn't see this coming. I might have seen this more coming last year when the rumors that Patricia lost the locker room and Stafford was on his way out, maybe. But the fact that this happened after they hired Dan Campbell is interesting. Nevertheless, this is the world that we're living in. So, Anthony, we're going to go to you. What are you alluded to it in the intro, but dive a little bit deeper. Tell us how you feel about knowing that Matt Stafford will not be your quarterback for the Lions next season.
Well, it starts where I'm 24 years old. I'm young. Stafford's been with Detroit for 10 years. I was 15 years old when Stafford was drafted, and I basically grew up with him as Detroit's quarterback. So watching him step down and picturing him playing for another team and then another quarterback playing for our team, it's hard to imagine right now. But I've seen it happen to other positions, like when Calvin Johnson left, or when we dealt with those injuries a few years ago. I mean, even the 0-16 season, I knew there were going to be changes, but we didn't go 0-16. When Bevel stepped in, we were winning games, and I think if Bevel stayed, Stafford would have stayed as well. I truly believe that. The change of staff, the change of scenery and everything made Stafford say, well, it's time for this team to have a change. But I think he got pushed out, just like Calvin Johnson and just like Barry Sanders. They both got pushed out. The organization pushed them out.
Interesting.
Essentially.
So you think that he had a connection with Darryl Bevell. And,
yes.
I mean, the offense did look better once Bevell took over. I mean, he was already the offensive coordinator, but when he took over as head coach, the offense, there was a spark. They were playing better. But you also think that the Lions organization itself decided to, hey, we're starting over from scratch. Whole new coaching staff. Let's get a new QB. Is that your thoughts?
They've been pushing Stafford out for years. He's bruised and he's battered playing for the Lions. He is very talented.
He's a little injury prone.
He has been.
I mean, yeah. I mean, because they don't give him the target. They don't give him the offensive line he needs.
Yeah.
He says, I need an offensive line. I need protection. And they won't give it to him. And so no wonder he's getting hurt because he doesn't have a team to protect him. So it's good that he's stepping down from Detroit. I think that's the best decision he can make as a quarterback. And it's the worst decision that Detroit can make because Detroit pushes talented players out. Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, and now Matthew Stafford, who may be the best Detroit quarterback since Bobby Lane. The best Detroit quarterback since Bobby Lane.
Wow, that's saying something.
I firmly believe that. You know? And it's just, it baffles me. The kind of stress and, these situations aren't new in Detroit. I mean, it happens all the time. Ownership, we've been trying to get a new owner for years. Martha Ford, she just stepped down. So Sheila Ford Hamp, she's our new owner. And I was hoping for some changes. Things are going to change, right? And I think this is what's changing. I think we all need to accept that Stafford is done in Detroit. And
so let's talk about next steps then. Right. So this is a foregone conclusion at this point. Both sides have agreed. This isn't like the Watson saga where, there's a rumor out there that Watson wants to be traded. Right. Houston hasn't really said anything on their side. No, both sides are like, yep, we're good. See you later. So what do you think the Lions should do? Do you think they should draft a rookie quarterback? They'd probably need to move up in the draft to get one of these, surefire studs. Should they acquire a veteran? Right? Should they go after like a Sam Darnold, a Jameis Winston, something like that? What are your thoughts on what they should do at quarterback next year?
So grabbing a veteran, we're gonna get a few picks for Stafford. He's worth it. I mean, his contract's worth $43 million right now. So in order for a team to even acquire Stafford, they would need to give some first round picks or a player. I personally wanted Deshaun Watson, but we would have to give away our picks if we were going to get a player like that.
You and everybody else.
Right, that wouldn't happen, and we'd lose Stafford. And I think if we trade Stafford for picks, draft a rookie quarterback, we could start all over, which bugs me because we've been rebuilding since 1957. And we're going to continue to rebuild until we never win a Super Bowl. And so I do think we should draft a rookie quarterback. and see what he can do.
And the problem with
Kind of
that
like a Joe Burrow
is
situation.
the problem with that, unfortunately, is the biggest issues were not on the offensive side of the ball; it's on the defensive side of the ball. So,
right, exactly.
So you need those picks to sign to draft defensive talent.
Yeah.
Will, what are your thoughts on the mess in Detroit?
You could always go for Derek Watson, who a lot of people don't know. It's actually
Deshaun's little brother.
Deshaun's first name. No, it's his first
you and
name.
the names, man. You're just dropping.
There's so many. There's so
you're
good.
dropping the knowledge.
You could also trade for Quintorris Jones, who nobody knows is Julio.
That's
Julio.
Wow. That name's that's kind of cool. We'll call him Q.
Tom Brady throwing to Rod Godwin.
What? How is this? Where
Rod
you have
Godwin.
this list? You have like the insider knowledge.
I look up odd NFL first names. You would never think, bro, some of these people's names that anyway. You know what we should do one day? I'll just go down the list of odd names that you would never expect.
We'll have a segment on who's guessed their real name. I like it.
Exactly. There's so many. I mean, you spread a list earlier today of like potential free agent quarterbacks or traded quarterbacks, right?
There are a lot.
You could look at. I mean, there's a lot of options, man. You know,
Roger said
like,
last night, after the game, he's like, I don't know what my future is, and yeah, maybe he's a little emotional, but just the fact that he threw it out there.
I mean, his team drafted a quarterback in the first round when he wanted receivers. I'd leave too.
We talked about Jordan Love and the tactic to get your husband back.
I mean, to your point about they don't have anything, because they damn sure don't have a defense since they let
Darius Slay
go, right?
Yep. Went to Philly.
You need to get a vet. I don't think that you're going to get probably a first and a fourth maybe or something like that for Stafford. I would think from somebody. I think you go out and you use that. Number one, you see who's available, right? You could get a steal. I mean, I could see Detroit getting somebody like Mac Jones.
That's true.
Who's like, just
quarterback
that would be
from
the
Alabama.
Perfect spot.
Yeah,
the perfect spot because he is
an early second rounder to me.
Exactly. He's
meaning
not
you don't
good.
have to trade up.
That's
for
my
him,
point.
I think is what Will's point is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's perfect Detroit move would be to take Mac Jones and just be mediocre forever. That's probably what they'll do. So, I think you got to shore up that defense. You know what I mean? You got to shore up the line. You still got Galladay. They got Hawkinson, who's one of the
although
best
Galladay is a free
potential.
agent, so they're going to have to deal with that. Yeah.
Jones, who's the speedy kid that everyone thought
Marvin
was going to be fantasy relevant, but no, the other guy starts with a Q.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I don't.
That's Cephas.
Yeah,
the rookie we got last year.
Yeah, him. Hawkinson, Swift. I mean, you have the pieces there. You just need a line and a QB and a defense. So, I think it just depends on who's available. But that's my early bold prediction. Detroit takes Mac Jones, and
you heard it here first
continues
on the PPP.
in a mediocrity.
Roger, what are your thoughts on this? Well, how do you see the Lions situation shaking out?
Yeah. Well, first of all, my apologies goes out to Anthony here. It's like being a Bills or a Cleveland fan. I mean, when the organizational structure is that dysfunctional, you can never trust them to make the right decision. And what was it? In the 2000s, they drafted receivers in the first round, high picks, 3 consecutive years to try to set it up. Stafford, well, he's gonna be all right. He just got the living hell beat out of him the entire time he was there. And there's one great, I think it's the longest piece NFL Films ever did, where he dislocated his shoulder, and came to the sideline after throwing a touchdown, come back in and get the 2-point conversion. So, I mean, that's a tough road. That organization needs a strip down from the top. And if you don't have that through ownership, and, not to mention the Buffalo thing, but the Sabres are going through that with the Pagulas, who actually own the Bills as well.
Will, I think he's talking about hockey. We have a hockey reference.
Forever.
we joke.
Yes.
We had a Canadian on
yes,
for our politics episode a couple weeks ago, and we had no idea about hockey in the slightest.
Oh, yes. Your Buffaloes. Well, look at the bottom of the division in the North, and you'll find them. But it's tough. I mean, really, it has to be. You have to hire the right people. Whether Dan Campbell is going to be that right person for Northern Michigan, who knows? It's tough to handle when you have such situational dysfunction for decades now. I mean, we're talking decades. And before you were born, we used to look at the Lions and say, geez, we love them, but they just never produce when it counts. And that's an organizational thing. I mean, these things have to be done from the top down. And it sounds like the Fords aren't willing to do that. So, like Will was saying, they could middling the draft and pick up this kid who's not ready and is going to throw him into a situation where he can't respond and not play to his talents. Now, this might all be not true when it comes to Dan Campbell. We don't know what kind of coach he's going to be. He's going to kick them in the ass. That's obvious. Anthony, you watched his introductory
We're going to bite a kneecap
press conference.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, he's right.
I was ready to go out there and hit somebody.
Right, exactly. But we'll see how that translates. But the structure of the Lions organization is something that has to be addressed, and I don't know if they've done it. One good hire, maybe. I mean,
here's the angle I'm going to take, specifically because right after this we're going to get to the Bills. The fact that, as you mentioned, Roger, the Bills organization had struggles for a long time, and now things are looking up. So, Anthony, there is a little bit of hope right now. Before you know who that quarterback is, before you know how Dan Campbell's going to be, how Anthony Lynn's going to run the offense, Aaron Glenn on the defense, let's be optimistic and say, hey, maybe this is the time it finally works. So that I'm going to leave it on that.
Yeah,
Will, I'll let you do it.
Well, hang on.
That's really hard to say because I talked to my dad about that. I mentioned that. I said, let's be optimistic. And my dad said, I've been optimistic for 60 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, most of the mocks right now, I looked up most of the mocks.
Go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
A lot of the mocks are picking Parsons as an inside linebacker to the Lions, but a couple of them that I looked, most of them are agreeing that Fields and Lawrence are going to be off the table by the time the Jets pick it, or the Lions pick it 7, I think.
Yeah, 7.
So
and Zach Wilson will probably also be gone.
No, I saw
North
2 or 3.
Dakota State's Trey
Lance is the one who might fall to them at 7.
Yeah,
right.
I saw that there's 2 to 3 mocks that actually picked Zach Wilson
at 7. Okay,
for the
right.
for the
so
Lions.
We'll see. That's part of the intrigue.
So
but I'm gonna end on that positive note, Anthony. Because what do you have if you don't have optimism? Right? You're not your dad yet. You're not 60 years in. You're only 24.
If the Lions fans don't have optimism, they're probably dead from suicide.
So let's talk about a franchise that has recently turned around. And yes, Roger, we're going to talk about the game in a little bit. I want you to hear your breakdown, your thoughts on McDermott's play calling. I'm probably going to completely agree with you. But right now, I want to talk about the state of the Bills going forward. So first, I want to hear your reflections of the 2020 season. Obviously, you made it to the AFC Championship game for the first time since the mid-'90s. Josh Allen wasn't even born the last time the Bills won the division, so there's a lot to look forward to. Allen was a legitimate MVP candidate for a good portion of the year. What are your thoughts on the 2020 season for the Buffalo Bills?
Well, overall, I mean, it was fantastic. The whole idea of this season, and thankfully we had a season, was to dethrone the Patriots and win the AFC East, which they did in convincing style.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. The Patriots dethroned themselves.
Okay, so Will.
No, you didn't.
Will is like a Patriots.
No,
he doesn't. He's a Brady Gronk fan, but they used to be on the pad. So, context for you, Roger, is anytime you mention anything about the Patriots, he's going to show his Edelman thing. Blah blah blah. Will gets a little butthurt, so don't ignore him. Please continue.
I said this on the podcast. Beating the Patriots this year was like beating an 80-year-old.
Who's the coach
of?
Who's the coach of the Patriots right now?
Ran
Who
over.
is the coach
ran
of
over.
the Patriots?
Roger, go ahead. Go ahead,
Belichick.
Roger.
Roger, continue.
That's fine. And if you look at that picture, there is a little bit of green on
not a
that
catch.
football there. So we don't know if that's we
catch.
still don't know if that's a catch. No, I'm just kidding. That was a great catch. Look, Belichick's always going to be a problem, and he's going to be a problem until he retires. Until he's 6 feet under, he's going to be a problem. So that was the gold standard, really, in division. I mean, they won 19 out of 20 divisional championships. So how do you deal with that? Well, you go out and you beat them. They got lucky the first game against Cam, fumbling the ball, and then they just absolutely beat them on Monday night up in Foxborough. But for the season as a whole, it's great. The job was win the AFC East and then win a playoff game. So they did that twice. They won the division, they won the AFC East, and they won 2 playoff games. So as a whole, and all Western New York is agog about this team. I mean, we're always Bills fans, we're always diehard, but it just brought it out even more of this area. And it was great. It's a wonderful energy to feel. But boy, they left some plays on the field there in Kansas City. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it at all. But the whole culture of and apologies to Packers and Chiefs fans. And they're great fan bases. I won't deny it. But there's something special about the Bills in Buffalo. And I don't know where it comes from, the snow, the weather, we're all in it together. It comes from where the stadium is in Orchard Park. It isn't just stadium parking. I mean, you can park in private lots, cost you $30-$40, but the tailgate's ridiculous.
We've seen lots of gifts of the tailgating, so.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Yeah, what's with the tables?
Yes.
So many tables have been broken. I don't get it.
Oh, no. Okay. All right. Yes. Let me clarify this for you. All right. So that is all part of the whole Bills Mafia motif, if you will. Right. So back in 2006, 2007, when you had J.P. Lossman as your quarterback, or Trent Edwards, or they wound up with Kyle Orton. And he had coaches like Dick Duran and Chan Gailey and Doug Marrone. Not that there's nothing to do in Buffalo. It's got the greatest architecture in the Northeast, really, to be honest, outside of Boston. It's got a great restaurant scene.
Probably some great bars.
San Francisco. The bars are open to 4 a.m. here. I mean, God, how much complaint do you have to have? But I think what happened is the younger generation in their late teens, early 20s, went to the stadium for it's a happening. It is a big event to do. But the football was so bad, and it was so mediocre, and it was like teasing, and then it would rescind back into just how bad they really were and how badly constructed and drafted, whatever. You see that on the field. The Bills Mafia decided, well, we're here, so and that's no party a 21-year-old walks away from. So that's where the table thing came out, because the product on the field.
So let me
why
summarize.
The table specifically? I mean,
they sucked so much that you just wanted to crash through a table drunk.
Okay, that I get. That makes sense.
I guess.
So
guess.
let me ask you. So when you.
And everyone said that's a great idea.
When you become a Bills fan, do they just mail you like a trunk full of dildos to throw on the field, or are those like your own?
I think,
like
some
where do they come
stadiums
from?
you get bobbleheads, but when you go to Buffalo, you get the little dildo to throw. It's dildo day in Buffalo at Orchard Park.
That's what.
And you try to hit Gronkowski with it.
That speaks to the exuberance.
That's definitely what that speaks to.
Gronk might collect a few
exuberance.
of those, but that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, really, to put a bow on it, it was a great season. We found out a lot about Josh Allen. We find out a lot of good things about him. He is the man. They're going to, I know he enters his option year, but they're going to lock him up forever. As well they should. The kid was great.
I want you to know.
And last night he was under siege.
I want you to know that preseason,
yes.
I dropped a 20 spot on 20-1 odds of the Bills to win the Super Bowl. I want you to know that. And there were only 2 teams that I bet on. One of them was the Bills, and one of them was the Titans. And they whatever. But I was this close. I was this close to my my big payday next year.
Yeah, well,
next year.
Well,
you got to get there. 2 days.
Let's talk about what they could do going forward then, because you have your guy, you have your quarterback, and that, I mean, Anthony was just talking about,
and Diggs,
and
you've got your wide receiver one.
But as a Dolphins fan, Tua, jury's still out, but I'm hopeful. But prior to Tua, I mean, we've had 26 quarterbacks since Dan Marino. So having your quarterback be as good as Allen is, that's a huge part of the puzzle. But obviously, there are still pieces left. So the first question I have for you, Roger, is what direction would you like them to go early in the draft? And when I say early, I mean they're going to have a late pick, but let's say first and second round. What are the kind of positions you'd like them to target in the draft in April?
Well, they got to stop the run. I mean, that has been the Achilles heel all year long, and they can't run the ball.
That too.
And you were hoping they could massage it enough to win a title and deal with the offseason. But it came back to bite you in the ass at the worst time possible. And they have tried to. Ed Oliver, AJ Epinesa, they have tried to address that. It's not like they don't know.
And they've drafted running backs in the offense. They got Zach Moss and Singletary the year before, so they are trying.
Right.
I mean, the way to beat Kansas City was on the ground. You just don't have a ground game.
Josh Allen had 88 rushing yards, and the next guy had like 15.
Yeah, and that's been the story all season. So you just fold your hands and pray that you can get through a game like that and go to the Super Bowl and fool everybody until the next draft comes along. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, they have tried to address that, but it has to be done. You look at the 2 guys they let get away, and it's contract-wise, and I understand. The first one I understand, Star Latulier, went down to Miami for your guys. He was central to freeing up the linebackers like Edmonds and Milano to make plays. But the biggest mistake, and Brandon Beane, we love him, no doubt. He's done a great job. Let Wyatt Teller go to the Browns. All right, well, you hit and you miss. But letting Jordan Phillips go to Arizona, a 659-pound space eater, and they let him toddle off because they didn't want to pay him because they want to constrict the cap. I know they have Allen coming up and everything like that, but that was short-sighted in my view because it cost him. It cost him in big games, and it cost him in the biggest game of the season. Is they could not stop the run. It's really as great as the 5 and 4 wide is, and as great as the passing stats that Allen has put up this year. It comes down to one thing, really. It's the line of scrimmage.
So wait.
Can you win the line of scrimmage? Kansas City did. The Bills did.
So you don't classify one of the Bills' biggest mistakes defensively of the past few years as letting go the number 1 cornerback in the NFL?
Gilmore.
Oh, Stephon. Well, he didn't want to be here. I mean, that's obvious under that Rex Ryan staff. Is it a mistake? Absolutely it is. Are you kidding me? I mean, him and Trey White on the other side, good luck.
Because that's really what hurt them. And granted, almost nobody could cover the Chiefs, but it was Kelsey and it was Hill, that was really damaging. They couldn't stop the pass against Mahomes. But once again, not many people can. Let's talk about free agents. We know the positions.
Let's talk about
Let's
talk about your record in conference championship games.
Well, what, the Bills record?
Oh
no, Brian's record in picking them.
Oh, I was 1-1. We're going to get to that. We're not. We're gonna hear a little. I want to hear a little bit more about the Bills, and then we'll get to that. I correctly picked the Chiefs. I think you picked the Bills, didn't you? All right, we'll get to that. But yeah, maybe. So any particular free agents coming up that you want to target, or I mean, you've outlined the positions. Anything anything else you think the Bills can do to improve? Play calling, whatever.
Well, yeah, we can get to that if you want.
Just briefly, and then we'll talk about the games.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I can go on forever with this. Larry
Ogunjobi.
What's it? Joby.
Right, Brown.
Yes, from Cleveland. Yes, he would be someone I would target.
Shoring up that defensive line,
Yes, they have to. And you can talk a lot about the offensive tackles. Darrell Williams came in from Carolina, did a really nice job, but the guard play has got to get better. And everyone loves John Feliciano here because of his attitude. And you saw he started a fight at the end of the game.
And Josh Allen throwing the football at Alex Okafor's face.
Yeah,
that was very Bills. That was very Bills Mafia right there.
Right, exactly. And
great meme too.
I mean, at least your franchise doesn't have the butt fumble.
Or what are we calling the Daniel Jones thing?
True.
Does that have like a name now? Because that's the other. At least you don't have the
self
Danny
tackle
Dime somersault. I don't know. That doesn't rhyme. That doesn't work. But butt fumble is like iconic. We got to come up with something for Daniel Jones. But yes, bottom line, it's looking up for the Bills. And as a Dolphins fan, part of me is like, the Bills are going to be good for a while. But I'm happy for you guys. The Bills have been down. Dolphins have been down. It's nice to see you guys pick up. And it's nice to see the Patriots going in the opposite direction and going straight down. So
I think everyone can agree with that.
Yes, thank you. No Will, you're riding high with your Bradiness. I'm going to take any digs at you that I can. So let's go ahead and move into talking about breaking down these two conference championship games. We'll start with the one that Will is very excited about and the one that I did incorrectly pick, and that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Green Bay Packers 31-26. They will be moving on to play in the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. That's the first team to play in their home stadium in the modern Super Bowl era. One thing to note, Rodgers is now 1-4 in NFC title games. Rodgers is
Did you see the Wikipedia page for the NFC Championship game? It said the game you go to beat the Green Bay Packers and advance to the Super Bowl.
So it's so true. And LaFleur, as great a job as he's done in his 2 seasons, has come up pretty poorly in the 2 championship games he's played in.
That call to kick that field goal.
Yes, that's where I wanted to start.
The most beta shit I've ever seen in a
championship. You're in a champion.
Like, number one, no. First of all, so I have a lot of thoughts.
Me too.
About this game.
I wanted to start with that. So go ahead with your thoughts on the field goal choice.
Thought number one is that Aaron Rodgers could have scored twice
with his legs.
Before that.
3 times if he hits Devontae Adams. The pass was a little off target to the left, so he had 3 opportunities to score.
Yeah, and he didn't. So that was on him. But you have an almost uncoverable goal line wide receiver in Devontae Adams. You have a scrambling, super accurate on the move Aaron Rodgers, who again, I'm not a huge Aaron Rodgers fan, but I respect the hell out of Aaron Rodgers. Like, mechanically, probably the best quarterback in the league, right? Yeah. Like, he's amazing. On any other team, he would have multiple Super Bowl wins, right? But he's on the Packers, so that
for now.
You're gonna do that against Tom? Like, they gave the Bucs the ball back up 5 with like 2 minutes remaining in the game. They had to get a 3-and-out. They had to get the ball back and then score. Like, even if you would have just turned it over right there, right? You would have been down 8. You would have backed them up all the way. You still have to stop them. You still have to score. And now you've got better field position because they're backed up all the way to like the 10. You know what I mean? And you left more time on the clock. So, like,
100% agree.
I was happy as hell.
I'm sure you are.
Like, here's the thing. Here's the metric. When you make a coaching decision and the other team goes, thank God.
You know it's wrong.
100% of the time, that was the wrong coaching decision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you see it all the time. You're like, thank God they're punting it.
So I want to expand on that. Obviously,
you know?
I made this very clear. I was anti-Brady. I am anti-Brady. Hey, he's the GOAT. I put the respect on Twitter. I am never going to say that he's not. He is the greatest. This is his 10th Super Bowl. Are you kidding me? The guy's insane, but I can't stand him. So clearly, I was cheering against the Bucs. I was cheering for the Packers. I also loved Rodgers' revenge season narrative. We've talked about this with the whole drafting Jordan Love, wife, fat guy Jim, all that stuff. I just love the idea of him finishing the job and just like sticking it to the Packers. Like, hey, this is what you get for drafting a quarterback. So I was cheering for Green Bay. I was cheering for Green Bay throughout this game. And when they had the ball and fourth down, first of all, yeah, I said the same thing. I think I screamed at the TV. Both of those second and third down, run it. Like, it was wide open for him to run in those touchdowns. But fine, we get to fourth down. You've got Aaron Rodgers, as you mentioned, Will, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, mechanical quarterback maybe ever to play the game athletically with his skill set. And you choose to kick a field goal. On the other side of it, not only you're not giving it back to Mitchell Trubisky, you're giving it back to the single greatest quarterback to ever play the game, especially in the playoffs, especially when the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say it twice. I checked my Twitter. It's on there, all right?
No, I don't think this is working.
You know how I feel. Moving on. But like, in what universe is that the right decision? You've got barely over 2 minutes. Sure, you've got 3 timeouts, but no matter what, as you said, Will,
and all the momentum. Like, this game was what, 38
Brady
to 10?
Brady had 3 interceptions in the second half. They did. The Packers didn't do much with those, but the point was the Bucs were actually on the downfall. They were not playing well. Receivers were dropping balls. That last interception Brady threw, where he was getting pressure, but he just kind of threw it up for grab. Like, the Bucs were not playing well on offense, and maybe that's what guided their decision. But it's still, either way, as you mentioned, Will, and this was my big point, you still have to stop them. So either you kick a field goal and you have to stop them, or you go for it and you don't get it and you still have to stop them. There's 2 minutes left in the game. It's Tom Brady. Under no circumstances do you kick the field goal there. And what happened naturally, and some people said this about the Browns in the divisional game against the Chiefs, like, why do you punt? Yeah, it's 4th and 9, but you're not going to get the ball back, and they didn't. So that was my biggest problem, and I was just baffled as to why LaFleur would do that, and he's going to have to answer questions about that all offseason. Mic drop.
I mean, so a couple other thoughts about that game is that if Tampa's going to do anything against the Chiefs, Godwin and Evans have to figure it out. Their hands. Like, a couple of those balls were high. I'll give you that. One of the interceptions was absolutely on Brady, right? He just threw it up for grabs because he was about to get tackled or whatever. It's kind of like a punt, honestly. But, I mean, like, Godwin and Evans, man, it's just like all these ricochets that went for interceptions, just drop balls. I mean, they're counting on Tyler Johnson's hands and Scotty Miller.
Johnson had to drop, too.
I think they'll
Johnson had to drop,
He did. Came up huge in the last game. Though.
And huge. Godwin made up for some of his drop, but that's the point. They'll make big plays, but if you're going up against the Chiefs, one dropped pass can make the difference between keeping up with Patrick Mahomes.
I think it's crucial that they get AB back before the Super Bowl. I don't know what his status is, but he's got to be there. I mean, if you have that many, like, AB doesn't drop that.
That's true.
Ever. Like, I mean, he's...
Say what you want.
It's almost unfair that he's on the team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they just they should win the Super Bowl. Put it that way. So I don't know, man. I know Roger doesn't want to talk about that game, but I feel like I want Roger and Anthony to talk about it a little bit. But that's my another surprise. I'll just leave this last surprise. Leonard Fournette looks good.
That one touchdown run. We were texting back and forth. That was very impressive. I'll give him that.
It's like the guy the Jags wanted to draft. And then they got like a preteen girl who's angry at the world. So
I want to mention a couple other things from an analysis standpoint. Now that I got the whole... Roger likes that analysis. Yeah.
That's great.
So from an analysis standpoint, because I got off my chest, that going for it or not going for it and kicking that field goal was my biggest pet peeve with this. But a couple things to note. The Bucs pass rush looked fantastic. So Shaq Barrett had 3 sacks. JPP had 2 sacks, and they had multiple other pressures. In the first half, part of that was Rodgers' fault. So I actually tweeted it, like, Rodgers was holding the ball for like 4 or 5 seconds, just waiting for the big play. And that was his big knock last season, is that Rodgers just kept waiting, and then he would take sacks. And he wasn't throwing interceptions. He only had like 2 picks all year because he won't make those bad decisions. But he's just holding, waiting for this play that's not happening. He does, as short of Devontae Adams, he doesn't have enough just amazing route runners that will get open in those scenarios. So that was what I noticed. David Bakhtiari, it didn't hurt them last week, but this week clearly hurt that he was out of this game and that those Buccaneers edge rushers were just having their way with the Packers tackles. And they did get Vita Vea back, and Vea might not have done much on the stat sheet, but having Vea come in, especially on third down, to consume some of that space in the middle. Roger's talking about defensive linemen and the difference they can make for the rest of the team eating up blocks. I really do think that had. So what I'm hitting at is...
And
go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, this is not a Super Bowl preview. We're going to wait till next week. But that is, if they want to stand any chance, they're going to need a repeat of that. They're going to need these guys to clog the middle and get pressure on Mahomes and bring him down before Mahomes can do Mahomes things.
And the Chiefs' left tackle just ruptured his Achilles.
We're not on that game yet, but yes, Eric Fisher will be out. So I guess that's relevant for this particular point. Anthony, what are any points on this game?
Yeah, I can't get over that pass before halftime when the defense was completely
Scotty Miller.
crumbled.
That was perfection.
I lost my
mind.
mind.
Scotty Miller dropped a pass a few plays before that.
Will said he scared his kids. So
when he threw that, like, you don't understand. They get the ball back, right? Like, just on a miracle, one play before halftime, and you put the dagger in like that. That I wasn't excited even about when they came out and turned him over and scored again, and then started to piece by piece throw the game away. I really wasn't excited about that. Because, like, I was like, oh, man, everybody started just going, oh, well, there goes the Bucs to the Super Bowl. You know, it was 28-10. Packers weren't doing crap. And everyone's like, well, they tried. And I'm like, this is not over.
He did.
What did they do?
He texted me that.
If you would have played another quarter, Green Bay would have won.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, unless Matt LaFleur was trying for more field goals. But, yeah. Good point. So. But, yeah, I agree. And I said it, that Scotty Miller touchdown was absolute perfection. And even I'll give Brady credit. That's why he's the GOAT, because in those moments, he comes up big. Before we get on to the game that Roger really wants to talk about, Roger, do you have any thoughts on the Bucs-Packers game?
Yeah, just to echo what everyone said, that was the play of the game. No matter how the second half unwound, that was the
It felt
play.
like the dagger, even though it was in the second quarter. It felt like the stake in the coffin.
It did. Yeah, absolutely. It really did. And, it was a 3 tight formation. I don't know what Mike Pettin is thinking as the defensive coordinator for the Packers. To play a single...
it was very Greg Williams of him.
Playing a single high safety.
Very Greg Williams.
Yeah, no, geez, we had Greg Williams as a coach. God, we sat through so many games of that. I mean, unbelievable that you would leave Scotty Miller, look, Scotty Miller's not going to the Hall of Fame. This we understand. But he's slippery, and he's got speed. And he matched up on King on the outside, and, well, of course Brady's going to find him.
I guarantee you.
Unbelievable. That, to me, that the game really, it wasn't over then, but it really put down that psychic
it definitely took the home field
that away. This is going to be different.
Brady does that to receivers, though. I mean, like, look what yeah. Chris Hogan did after he left.
You mean 7-Eleven? Wasn't that his nickname?
Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, he did it to, they made Dion Lewis look great. Dion Lewis went away, and Amendola for the Lions.
He signed a big contract.
To be fair to Amendola was a weapon for the Lions. Like, he was a really good possession receiver.
Wes Welker wasn't a stud on Miami. He was solid, but...
Julian Edelman? Do you think Julian Edelman would be a number one on any other team? Like, he's like a slot guy.
Hell no.
You know what I mean? But that's what Brady needs. You know, and that's why Antonio brings such a force, you know, and that's why, Scotty Miller, like, Brady's slot receiver is the key to him playing well.
Having that,
you know outlet. What I mean? Like when he doesn't have that downfield just bomb that he can throw, that little guy is open over the middle. You know what I mean? And then what'll happen is he'll start peppering that guy, and they'll forget about the tight end seam. And this is what happened in New England time after time after time, is they'll hit that little crossing thing to Edelman over and over again.
The safeties will start to come up, and then Gronk goes over the top.
And then Gronk will go right down the seam. And Brady had who did he have? I think it was Godwin on that. No, Evans. He had Evans on that, and that's that one that he.
By the way, I just want to. Roger's having a good time. He's doing his tokes. I had to comment. I had to say something.
No, there's like a cloud.
He's in Buffalo. You know what, Roger? You're being Buffalo, and I love it.
But that's what happened. That's what happened on that pick. They cleared out the middle. Evans went up the seam, and he hit him a little bit high, and Evans was butterfingers, and the pick happened. But that's what he needs. That's why Miller and Brown, and that's why at the beginning of the year, their offense really wasn't clicking, because all they were trying to do were these bombs, and that's not Brady. Like, he needs to pick and choose his bombs.
Well, let me ask you something, Will. Here, how much influence do you think that Brady had on Bruce Arians to change the offense? Because you're right.
He had a lot.
Early in the season,
I think Arians finally started listening. Yeah. I think beginning on it was like, hey, I need you to get used to this, and Brady was like, understand what you want. This is what I can give you. You know what I mean? And they came to an agreement on that. And also, you'll notice about 3 to 4 games into Antonio being there and acclimating the offense, like, they just magically got really good, right? So there's also that.
I completely agree. I think that as the season progressed, and you saw this with the offense finally starting to click, is Arians, and he was quoted. Actually, they put a graphic on at the beginning of that game where Arians said, "Yeah, he's starting to go to Tom and say, hey, Tom, what do you see? If you see a play that you think is going to work, call it." Like, he's starting to get that, hey, I have the greatest quarterback. He's capable of doing these things. Let me give him more leeway. And we are seeing the fruits of that, unfortunately.
The Arians thing about tight ends is unfortunate.
Yeah, he's never featured in his offenses.
They don't even have Howard, dude. Like, they don't even have Howard, who is amazing. Like, they're running Cameron Brate, who's pretty good.
Good number 2 tight end.
Gronk is just blocking, which is what Gronk has always done. That screen was a really good
call.
Well.
I mean, I think that might have been the only ball he caught, but that was a great play call, and Gronk just kind of did his Gronk thing and picked up like 30 yards. But
I think Gronk's going to want to show out against Kelsey.
I'm going to mention one more thing before we get on to the Bills-Chiefs game. Is you mentioned it, Will, and this was a different thing, is that Gronk was blocking the whole game, and that screen, no one was covering Gronk because they just kind of forgot about him. And so you lull them in, and you're covering Godwin, you're covering Evans, and then before you know it, they do that screen, and Gronk's wide open, and he's got 10 yards before he's even near anybody. Then he trucks a couple people and does his Gronk thing. But yeah, that this office is dangerous.
The only thing he can't do is chase down Miami wide receivers. Oh yeah,
that was beautiful. I love randomly. I'll look that up, by the way, that highlight, and just watch Gronk stumble at the end as Jakeem Grant goes to the end zone. Anyway, let's go on and talk about the other championship game, the AFC championship game, and of course I'm going to start with Roger on this. So the Kansas City Chiefs, 38, beating the Buffalo Bills.
He looks so defeated. You're like, I'm going to start Roger. He's like,
Raj, if you need to take another toke before we get started, I get it.
No. This is just nicotine.
Okay, hey, I'm not judging either way, man. This is the PPP. You come as you are. I will say this before we get started in the analysis. The Chiefs aim to be the first team to repeat as Super Bowl champs since 2004, and that unfortunately was the New England Patriots. So, Roger, you've been dying to break down this game. We're going to start with you. Tell us your thoughts on the Chiefs beating the Bills.
Well, it starts from the top to the bottom. Really, they got out coached. As wonderful as all the accolades that have been given Brian Dable and Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott, they got out coached. There is no other way around it. And the conservatism that Sean McDermott has kind of held in his back pocket, and you saw it last year in the Houston playoff game, came back to haunt him at the worst possible time.
That's also true about the Republicans, by the way, and the actual conservatives. came back to haunt them at the worst possible
Will's
time.
jumping the gun on the politics yet.
Right. Well, I mean, it's just a confluence of events that really showed their shortcomings, that they're not a championship team. It's the conservative coaching. I mean, going for a field goal at the end of the half and then the beginning of the second half. I mean, say what you want about John Gruden, and you're deservedly so. Some of the criticism he gets, at least he goes for it. And
Andy Reid certainly goes for it. Andy Reid will go for a fourth down in any scenario.
No, you got no problem with that at all. And as you know, McDermott's from the Andy Reid coaching tree, but there are some lessons he didn't learn. That's for sure. It was a repeat of Week 6, but they played better. Allen was under siege all game, and they were doubling everybody
Diggs
up
had 2 catches
early.
by halftime.
And this is right. You got some garbage yards in the fourth quarter. Cole Beasley, by the way, and let me give a shout out to him. Played with a
fibula.
partially
Since Week
fractured
16.
fibula.
Yeah. So the whole playoffs.
Exactly. And he had a great quote today. He said, Locker clean-out day. He said, you take some meds and you suck it up.
That's a Buffalo mentality right there.
That really exactly. Just going to say, that typifies the Buffalo mentality. But they had no answers on defense. And they have had weeks to prepare for this. Yes, you have, Indianapolis in front of you. In Baltimore, look, you play the Ravens, you hold those points like gold. But you cannot play soft and you can't play scared against a team that can go 90 yards on 7 plays.
Or 1 play sometimes.
Like the Chiefs did. Or 1 play, yeah, for sure. It was really disappointing because they do this sometimes. Now I know they're 13-3 and they wound up 15-4, but there are games where they just don't have it. And I'm wondering, really, I mean, as we're going to Monday evening quarterback this thing, Brian Daboll, who's been just a fantastic offensive coordinator, I'm wondering where that offense went in the playoffs. I mean, you saw a little bit of it in the first half against Indianapolis. And then you saw a tiny bit of it in the second half against Indianapolis. Now, Baltimore,
they have a great
I understand.
defense. Yeah.
You score when you can score. Yeah, exactly. But to fold like that and to be so conservative,
and the Chiefs don't have a great defense. The Chiefs have a very middle-of-the-road defense.
Exactly. And one of the biggest problems is they can't run the ball. Look, Devin Singletary is a nice piece. Florida Atlantic guy. He's a good
complimentary
piece
back,
to mix in. Right. And same as Zach Moss, who got his ankle blown up the week before. TJ Yeldon finally
he made some plays. He did a little something. Made a nice catch
on the field. Yeah. Well, the reason is they don't trust him because he fumbles a lot. So, but I mean, that's something that has to be addressed. You can't go into Kansas City, into Arrowhead, and expect to throw the ball 45 times or whatever Josh wound up with, 38 or whatever, and not control the clock. And I'm not one of those people that says you got to keep it away from them, like a la Bill Parcells, Super Bowl 25. All Bills fans remember that. But there has to be some certain degree of balance, and it wasn't there. It hasn't been there all year, and this is what really bit them in the behind at the worst possible time. And I thought defensively, schematically, they just got owned. I mean, Bieniemy and Reed found guys wide open.
They found 2 guys.
Mahomes was great.
There's the funny stat. Yeah, between Hill and Kelsey, those 2 guys alone had nearly 300 yards receiving. Just Hill and Kelsey.
And that's brutal. And you can't have that. If you want to win a championship, if you want to win a conference, You cannot have that whatsoever. And this is the structural problem with the Bills, is the fact that they don't get pressure with 4. This will be key for Kansas City against Brady. We all know, like, the NASCAR defense with the Giants and the Super Bowls that they won. They can't do it. They can't do it. They have tried. They have drafted, like I said before, Oliver Epinesa. They have to either sign someone in free agency or draft somebody. They're going to be picking 29th, 28th, whatever it is. That's what has to be done, and they need an offensive guard. But as far as the game itself, I thought Allen played well. I mean, he did not have a lot of time to throw, and we have the book on Allen is you blitz him and you blitz him up the middle.
That's every quarterback.
Okay,
even Brady,
every quarterback's like that.
You get pressure up the middle, you got him.
Right, exactly. But I thought he really played well. There was a couple passes that I'm sure he wish he would have back. But I mean, when it was a game in question, he had Devin Singletary in the hands for a first down, and he dropped it. And he had one more carry after that because the coaching staff, to the credit of the McDermott staff, you screw up, you sit on the bench. It was tough, though.
Well, I want to talk about the conservative coaching, and this actually ties into the first game. Obviously, I was very passionate about my feelings with LaFleur kicking that field goal, but McDermott did it twice. Yes, it was not in the spot that it was where Green Bay is just over 2 minutes down by 8, all that, but you're playing the Chiefs. This is maybe even more so right now, maybe even more so than going up against Brady, is you're playing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. You can't stop them. You have to hope to keep up with them. Let's be perfectly honest. You want to beat the Chiefs. The Bucs want to beat the Chiefs in 2 weeks. You have to keep up with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill. And so field goals are not going to get it done. So Sean McDermott, who's actually been a fairly aggressive coach most of the season, decides that, no, I'm good with the field goal. I'm down by 12, but let me kick a field goal. Or I'm down by 11. Let me get it to within 1 score. But you're still down by 8 to the Chiefs. They're going to score again. They put up 38 points here. I don't get it. Do you just, McDermott, that's his first conference championship game as a head coach. LaFleur is only 2 years into that. Are they just getting timid? Will, what are your thoughts on kind of the conservative coaching that we saw?
I don't know, man. I think these coaches, I think the NFL outsmarts themselves a lot. You get into these. You see it in the draft all the time, is that they'll get into the draft and all the hype will be about whoever, right? And then that's how you take Mitch Trubisky at number 2 or 3 or whatever, yeah.
And trade up
for him on 13 starts.
Honestly,
that's how you wind up with Carson Wentz. That's how you wind up with Jared Goff, is you just overthink it. So you see it in the draft all the time. I think you see it in these games too. Like, there's a lot on the line. Just go in and play the damn game. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, again, to your point about the Chiefs, you need to be going for 4th downs. If it's 4th and 2, it doesn't matter where you are as long as you're not like on your own 20. Like, if you're anywhere near the middle of the field, you need to be going.
Especially in this kind of game.
You know what
this
I mean?
Isn't a regular season game against a Trubisky. Yeah, you're playing one of the top teams in the league.
And all right, you start kicking field goals. You're like, no, we only lost by 3. You still lost. Yeah. Get blown out by 50 and go out and say, well, you know what? We went for every 4th down. We went for 2 every time, and I just knew field goals weren't going to happen. So we ended up having to, dig a hole deeper because we just had to be super aggressive.
There's an expression that I love that I think applies here. Did you coach to win or did you coach not to lose? And I think that's what it comes down to. I think McDermott was coaching not. Well, let me just get some points. LaFleur, let me just make sure I get 3, so I'm only down by 5 to the greatest quarterback ever to play. But you're not playing to win the game, and that's the problem. Anthony, what do you do? What insight do you have on this game?
Yeah, I think that game was left on the field. With conservative play calling, you don't kick field goals in the championship, especially if you're in 4th and 3 or below. I think you need to go for it, especially if you have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs.
Allen has been fantastic in the red zone this year. I mean, he is a weapon close to the goal line.
Yeah, and yeah, like Roger was saying, got outcoached. It really just comes down to that. And you are against what you probably could call the best team in the league right now. And I guess we'll find out if that's true in 2 weeks.
We better. I can't stand for Brady to win another Super Bowl. Roger, I'll turn to you for last thoughts. Any last thoughts on this game and the Bills in general before we wrap up the episode?
Well, it's disappointing. They played one of their worst games of the year, yet they were still there. That bodes well for the franchise. It bodes well for the organization. Obviously, they found their quarterback.
That's like 85% of the equation right there, to be honest.
Yeah,
exactly. They found him, and just the exponential growth between season 2 and season 3 for him was outstanding. Nobody, unless his family or someone in the Bills organization, figured out wow, we really got something here. They have that. There are issues though. They have to run the ball. They have to stop the run, and really, that's where it all starts and ends. And if they can't do that, they're gonna have to be a part of these finishes where they don't compete at the end. I mean, they got beat by a better team. Let's be honest. But they're in the conversation now. It's a well-run organization. They have the GM that they need. They have the coach that they need, even though I question a lot of his game day decisions. But that's fine. That's a nice spot to be in. So fine-tune it, turn it up, and we'll see what happens next
honestly,
year.
It's a tough loss, but it's a really good spot to be in. I'd like to think that the Dolphins and Bills are going to be battling for the AFC East for years to come, and that the Patriots will not win the division for the next 30 years. We shall see about that. Yeah.
Nope. It doesn't matter.
Belichick will give up. He's not going to get another. Cam's not going to be the quarterback. That's a whole nother.
Belichick's gonna Urban Meyer real soon. He's gonna be like,
I'm good. My health. I don't want to coach anymore. And then
that's what happened to Herb. Yeah. He had one season without Tebow, and he's like, nope, deuces.
Yep. So I mentioned it a few times, we are gonna wait until next week, and we will have an entire episode dedicated to the Super Bowl preview. So we're not gonna preview the game today. I want to thank my guests, Anthony, the producer. We obviously had to have you on for your heartfelt words when it comes to Stafford and the Lions, and obviously you're going to be sticking around with the podcast, and we will get your thoughts as that team progresses in free agency, the draft. We'll hear more about that, but my condolences to you in the meantime.
Good luck, Andy.
You know what us Lions fans always say: we'll get them next year.
Exactly. If you don't have that hope, then what's the point? Roger Walsh, thank you so much for coming on. I know you're going to stick around for the politics, so anybody who's listening through, make sure you hang out. We will have that politics chat dropping in a couple days. Will, whatever, you're there. You're not going anywhere. So make sure to please subscribe wherever you find your podcast. We are, as we have been the past couple weeks, on YouTube now. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Hey, I'm even on TikTok. So
ask questions. Yes. Ask questions.
We've been getting feedback, but we want to get even more. You know, do you want Will to cut out his microphone and or his camera so you don't have to stare at him and hear his crazy takes?
Actually, here's the feedback I want. So Brian owes me a roast me picture, holding up a sign that says roast me. Owes it to me. I would like people to submit what his story will be for the Reddit roast.
That's actually great. Yeah.
Did he cry when Biden won? Did he cry when he was of joy when he saw Tom Brady go to his 10th Super Bowl?
Somebody roast me with some Brady crap. I'm gonna lose it.
I think he did. Let me know why Brian was sad and why he should be roasted, and it will the best one will be the one that we submit.
Reach out to us, our email pigskinsandpolitics@gmail.com. You can tweet at us, official PP Pod, or comment YouTube, wherever you want to get in touch with us. Unfortunately, I lost the bet, and I will be roasted on Reddit, so you have a chance to be a part of that and embarrass me in whatever way you can. Thank you so much. Make sure to stick around for the politics. There is no game this weekend, but we'll catch you next time on the PPP.